Our next function we want to look at is the goHome function. With the goHome function, what we want to do is set up a basic range or radius that our Goomba can travel left or right, and when he gets to that point, then we can send him back over the other direction. So let's go in and let's kind of analyze what it is we've got to do. One, we've got to have a central point, a home position, to base our conditional on. So let's start off by creating a home position. Where is that home position going to be? We could tie that into the starting position of the Goomba, which limits us a little bit because we have to think about where we first place him. Or we can have it as a game object that just represents that home position. And that's probably our best bet, so we'll create a new game object, Control-Shift-N. And with this game object, let's just call this our home position. And let's select on our Goomba, and we're going to just drag this home position and drop it right there into the home position of our Goomba script. And we can see that we've got our home position right in here. Let's go ahead and just center it somewhat right in here on our world. Okay, so with that attached to it, that's what it's going to be looking for. We can go back up and we can see that we have our home position as a transform. Now, if we were going to be checking on that home position based on our current position and then setting it to go in a direction, we're basically creating this set of code that we did before for the chase player, except we're just simply looking for the position to send it the other direction. So let's start it with a conditional statement. We'll say if our current position, and what are we checking on along the x-axis is less than or equal to. Here we were doing our chase target, which represented the player, but this time we have our home position. So we'll say our home position dot position and dot x. So we're checking that is it less than the home position. If it is, what do we want to do? Well, we're going to set the state of our Goomba to send it to the right. So we'll do our Goomba state dot move right. Okay. And if that works for us, then we're going to do the opposite. We'll go say if our position is greater than the home position, then let's move him to the left. And we really don't need any additional change direction distance because we are getting to that end, and if we're getting to that end, it probably means we want to stay close to where we set it up as a designer. So let's save that one out. Now, where are we actually tying that back into? If we come back up here at the top, we can say inside of the switch statement we are doing a go home state. But how are we using it up here? We're not really checking for anything yet. If we're going to make this automatic, we need to check for some sort of range, which would be like a home range. And if we look over here, we do have a return home range. So let's set up a conditional up here, and we're going to check for the distance between us and this object, and if it's greater than the return home range, then we're simply going to turn him back around and have him go the other direction. Now the first thing we have is our if the distance to the target is less than the search range, do this. Well, we can go ahead and just finish this one off with else. And else what? Well, else basically we want to get the distance to the home, which is similar to what we were doing before, distance to our target. We're getting a vector3 dot distance, and we're finding our home position and then our transform position, and then checking to see if we need to return back to our home. So to do that, let's go ahead and set up a variable. We'll do a distance to home right there. And on our distance to home, we'll say this equals a vector 3.distance. And we're going to be looking for our two arguments here, our two parameters, and it's going to be our home target, our home position, and it's the home position dot position, and our second one's going to be our current transform position. Okay, so this is going to get that distance for us. And basically here we're just saying that if we can't see the player and we're just too far from home, then let's return back to the home position. So what is a conditional that represents that? Well, we're saying our distance to home is what? Is greater than our return home range. And if that's the case, then let's simply go home. And let's save that one out. Double check that we don't have any errors over here. If we're looking pretty good, then let's see what kind of range we've got. Now we have a range, and the return home range is 4, but just like before with the gizmos, we see that it's kind of hard to see. We don't really know where that range is. So our best bet, just like the other one, we'll go back down to our gizmo. Let's just add this into our onDrawGizmo function. We'll go ahead and set a color to start with. We'll make the color equal to color dot. Oh, let's choose a color. How about green? Green sounds like a good one. Then we'll do our gizmo. And this time it's going to be our draw wire sphere. And what are we feeding into this? We're feeding in the position of this object. So we're going to say our home position. So instead of our current transform, we're looking for our home position dot position. And what is that range that we're looking for? That's going to be the return home range. So that gets us set up for drawing a green sphere around our home position. So let's just save that one out. Go back over. And there we go. We've got our green one. If we change the return home range, we can bump that one up and down. So let's take that one right around those edges so we keep him on this platform. Let's change our attack radius a little bit and our search radius down a little just to test this out. We'll hit play. We may have to decrease these values just a little bit so that we can test it out. We'll do our return home range and shrink that one in even more. Let's say somewhere in here. See if we can move our little character out of the way enough. This way when he gets to this edge, he says, "Oh, I'm too far. Let's go back the other direction." When he gets to that side, he'll say, oh, too far that way, turn back around. There we go. We're looking real good like that. So this way we can chase the player. If we're outside of that search range, he's going to just continue in that direction he was in unless he gets to the edge and he turns back around. So here we're just creating a very simple logic that when I get to a certain point, what do I want it to do? And then, if it's outside of a range or trying to keep him within a range, turn left, turn right to keep him in that area. Alright, we're looking real good with that. So with that out of the way, the next thing we want to do is look at how we can put a little more logic or a little more AI into the character. Now we could try building things into the current state of the player and have him check for more things, or what we can do to keep this simple, as this is the first time we're actually trying to create a bad guy, let's set up objects inside of the world that kind of help our Goomba know what to do. So as designers, we're actually able to set up little trigger boxes, and when he gets to a trigger box, we can say, okay Goomba, you made it to this point, turn back around. Or maybe we have the Goomba increase his speed, or we could have the Goomba stop and wait, or jump, or something to that extent. But we can do that through triggers inside of the world so that we have some control over how the Goomba behaves. So to do that, what we want to do is we're going to be creating some path nodes basically, and some little trigger boxes and adding some logic to those. And we'll start setting that up next.